The council chamber was silent. Outside the large windows, stars stretched across the darkness of space. Inside, the leaders of 100 alien species sat in their seats, watching the hologram in the center of the room. The hologram showed death. Admiral Valix stood near the display. His insect-like body was perfectly still. His 4 arms hung at his sides. He had been a soldier for 60 years, but today he felt old and tired. 3 more ships lost, he said. His voice came through the translation device as a low buzz. That makes 47 ships destroyed in 3 months. 718 crew members dead. The hologram changed. It now showed a massive structure floating in space. The structure was enormous, bigger than a city. It was made of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Weapons covered every surface. This was the Sentinel Array. Thorman moved forward. The crystalline engineer's body made soft, clinking sounds as he walked. Light reflected through his transparent form, creating rainbow patterns on the floor. "We have tried everything," Thorman said. His voice sounded like wind chimes. "Energy weapons do nothing. The array repairs itself in seconds. Kinetic missiles are destroyed before they reach the target. We tried hacking into its computer systems. The technology is too old, too different. We cannot understand it." "What about the colonists?" someone asked from the back of the room. Valix looked down. 2,000 colonists are stranded in the void sector. Their supplies will last another month, maybe 2 if they ration carefully. After that, he did not finish the sentence. Everyone knew what came after that. "We must abandon the sector," Thorman said. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. "It is the only logical choice. We cannot defeat the array. If we send more ships, we will only lose more lives." Angry voices filled the chamber. Species from a dozen different worlds shouted and argued, but beneath the anger was fear. The Sentinel Array had been sleeping for 10,000 years. The civilization that built it was long dead, turned to dust, but their weapons still worked perfectly, still killed efficiently. "We have the best technology in the galaxy," someone shouted. "How can we not solve this?" "Because the civilization that built that array was more advanced than us," Thormund replied. His crystalline body flickered with blue light, showing his frustration. "They knew physics we do not understand. They could manipulate reality itself. To them, we are children playing with toys." Valix raised one of his 4 arms. The chamber became quiet again. "The vote is clear," he said. "We will evacuate what we can and abandon the void sector. I will send rescue ships to wait." The single word cut through the silence. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. Commander Tae-ho Kim stood up from his seat. He was human, which made him unusual in this chamber. Humans had only joined the Galactic Coalition 15 years ago. They were new, and their technology was primitive compared to most species. Their ships were slow, their weapons were basic. Other species often wondered why humans had been accepted into the coalition at all. Tae-ho was not tall, but he stood straight. His dark eyes looked directly at Admiral Valix. His face showed no fear. "Commander Kim," Valix said, "do you have something to add?" "Yes, Admiral." Tae-ho's voice was calm and steady. "Leave it to us." For a moment, nobody spoke. Then the chamber erupted in noise. Aliens turned to each other, speaking in dozens of different languages. The translation devices struggled to keep up with all the voices. "Leave it to you?" Thorman stepped closer to Tae-ho. "Commander, with respect, humanity barely understands quantum mechanics. Your ships use fusion engines that we stopped using 3,000 years ago. You have been in space for less than 200 of your years. This array was built by a civilization that makes us look primitive. What could you possibly do that we cannot?" Tae-ho did not look away. "I don't know yet, but we'll figure something out." "You will die," Valix said flatly. The array will destroy your ships in seconds. Maybe, Taeho agreed, but maybe not. The point is, we're willing to try. A female voice spoke from behind Taeho. Commander Kim is right. Ambassador Yuna Choi walked forward to stand beside Taeho. She was small and thin, wearing the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic service. She looked fragile compared to the massive aliens around her, but her voice carried authority. The Coalition Charter states that any member species has the right to attempt rescue operations, Yuna said. We are invoking that right. This is not a rescue operation, Thorman said, his voice rising. This is suicide. You cannot possibly succeed. You're probably right, Yuna replied, but we're going to try anyway. That's what humans do. We try impossible things. Sometimes we fail. Sometimes we don't. Either way, we try. Velix looked at the two humans. He had worked with them for 3 years. In that time, he had learned that humans were strange. They took risks that no logical being would take. They laughed in the face of danger. They attempted things that mathematics said were impossible. He had also learned that humans were stubborn. Once they decided to do something, they did it. No amount of logic or reason could stop them. You understand what you are proposing? Velix asked. If you fail, no one will blame humanity. The array has defeated everyone. There is no shame in this defeat. We understand, Taeho said, and we're still volunteering. Another human stood up. This was Jiwoo Park, a young woman who worked as an engineer on one of the human ships. She was known for fixing things that other species said could not be fixed. I've been studying the data on the array, Jiwoo said. She touched her data pad, and a new hologram appeared. It showed the array's attack patterns. There's a delay, 0.3 seconds between when the array detects a target and when it fires. It's tiny, almost nothing, but it exists. 0.3 seconds is meaningless, Thorman said. No ship can move fast enough to exploit such a small window. The calculations required are beyond even our best computers. Jiwoo smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. Your best computers, yes, she said, but we're not going to use computers. We're going to use human pilots. The chamber erupted in noise again. Species argued with each other. Some thought the humans were brave. Others thought they were insane. Most thought they were both. Velix held up all 4 arms. Slowly, the noise died down. If humanity wishes to attempt this mission, the Coalition cannot stop you, he said. But I want it on record that I advised against this. I want it clear that humanity chose this path. Noted, Yuna said. We'll need access to the array data and permission to enter the void sector. You will have both, Velix said. He looked at Taeho for a long moment. Commander, I have seen many brave soldiers die in my years. I would prefer not to add you to that list. Taeho bowed slightly, a human gesture of respect. We'll do our best not to die, Admiral. We're pretty good at surviving things that should kill us. The meeting ended. Species filed out of the chamber, talking in low voices. Some glanced at the humans with pity, others with curiosity. A few with something that might have been respect. Taeho, Yuna, and Jiwoo stood together in the emptying chamber. They looked at the hologram of the Sentinel array, still rotating slowly in the center of the room. Are we crazy? Jiwoo asked quietly. Completely, Yuna replied. Good, Taeho said. Crazy is what we do best. Outside the windows, the stars shone cold and distant. Somewhere in the darkness, the Sentinel array waited. It had destroyed 47 ships. It had killed 718 crew members. It had defeated the best minds and the best technology the galaxy could offer. Soon, it would meet humanity. And humanity had a plan. The human section of the station was different from the rest. Where other species preferred clean white walls and soft lighting, the humans had covered their walls with pictures and posters. Coffee machines sat in every corner. The smell of Earth food drifted through the corridors. Tae-ho sat in the briefing room with 12 other humans. These were volunteers. All of them knew the mission was dangerous. All of them had raised their hands anyway. Ji-woo stood at the front of the room next to a large display screen. She looked tired. She had not slept in 2 days, working on the plan. "Okay," she said. "Here's what we know. The Sentinel Array is old, really old. 10,000 years, give or take. The species that built it is extinct. We don't know why they built it or what they were defending against. We just know it works." She touched her datapad. The screen showed a diagram of the array. The array has 300 weapon platforms. Each platform can fire energy beams that will cut through any known shield. The platforms work together, sharing targeting data. They never miss. Well, almost never. "The 0.3-second delay," said Dong-Woo Lee. He was a pilot, one of the best. His hands were covered in small scars from years of working on ship engines. "That's our window." "That's our window," Ji-woo agreed. "But it's not enough. Even the fastest ships in the Coalition fleet can't dodge fast enough. The computers can't calculate the movements quickly enough. That's why everyone has failed." "So how do we succeed?" asked Soo-Jin Han. She was young, only 25. But she had flown through an asteroid field once without instruments. Other pilots called her crazy. She took it as a compliment. "We don't calculate," Ji-woo said. "We feel." The room was quiet. The pilots looked at each other. "Explain," Tae-ho said. Ji-woo pulled up another display. This one showed flight patterns, lines of movement through space. "The Coalition species use computers for everything. They calculate the perfect path, the perfect angle, the perfect timing. It works for them, but computers need time to calculate. They need data. In 0.3 seconds, there's not enough time for both." She zoomed in on the display. "But human pilots don't work that way. We use something the other species don't really have. Instinct, reflexes. We spent millions of years as hunters and prey on Earth. Our brains learn to react without thinking. We can make decisions in microseconds." "You want us to fly by instinct?" Dong-Woo said. "Against a weapon system that has killed 700 people?" "Yes," Ji-woo said simply. Another human spoke up. This was Jin-woo Kang, who handled communications. He was older than the others, with gray in his hair. "The aliens will think we're insane," he said. "They already think we're insane," Tae-ho replied. "That's not new." "There's more," Ji-woo said. She looked nervous now. "We need to provoke the array, make it target us, draw its fire. We'll be flying straight toward the weapons that have destroyed every ship that got close." Soo-Jin laughed. It was a short, sharp sound. "Oh, is that all? I thought you were going to ask us to do something difficult." Some of the others laughed too. It was nervous laughter, but it was real. This was how humans dealt with fear. They joked about it. They laughed at death. "I need to be honest with you," Tae-ho said. His voice was serious now. "This mission might fail. The math says it should fail. Every expert in the galaxy says we can't win. If you want to back out, now is the time. No one will judge you." Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They all just looked at him. "Okay then," Tae-ho said. "Let's go save some colonists." The meeting broke up. The pilots went to prepare their ships. Tae-ho stayed behind with Ji-woo. "Do you really think this will work?" he asked when they were alone. Ji-woo was quiet for a moment. "I think we have a chance. A small chance. The array is logical. It was built by logical beings. Everything it does follows rules. But humans? We break rules. We do things that don't make sense. Maybe that will confuse it. And if it doesn't, then we die quickly. The array is efficient. We won't suffer." Tae-ho smiled slightly. "That's strangely comforting." In another part of the station, Admiral Velix met with Thormund. The crystalline engineer was agitated. His body flickered with red light. "We must stop them," Thormund said. "They will die. All of them. And for nothing." "We cannot stop them," Velix replied. "The charter is clear. They have the right to try." The charter was not written for suicide missions. Velix's mandibles clicked together, a sign of irritation in his species. "Do you know what I have learned about humans in the 3 years they have been with us?" Thormund's light shifted to blue, showing curiosity. "What?" "They do not think the way we think. When we see an impossible problem, we accept it and find another way. When humans see an impossible problem, they try to solve it anyway. Sometimes they fail, but sometimes—" Velix paused. "Sometimes they succeed. And when they succeed, they do things we never thought possible. That is illogical." "Yes," Velix agreed, "but it is human." Dr. Hyejin Song was in her laboratory, surrounded by artifacts from extinct civilizations. She was a xenoarchaeologist, someone who studied the remains of dead species. She had been examining data about the civilization that built the Sentinel Array. Ambassador Yuna found her there, staring at a hologram. "Have you found anything useful?" Yuna asked. Hyejin did not look away from the hologram. "Maybe. The species that built the array was called the Architects. They were pure logic, no emotions. No creativity. Everything they did was efficient and perfect." "That doesn't sound helpful." "That's exactly why it might be helpful," Hyejin said. She finally looked at Yuna. "Think about it. They were perfectly logical. So they built a weapon system that was perfectly logical. It follows rules. It can predict any logical response. But humans aren't perfectly logical," Yuna said slowly. "Exactly. We're messy. We're emotional. We do things that make no sense. The Architects probably never imagined a species like us. Their weapon system might not know how to handle us." Yuna thought about this. "So our weakness might be our strength." "It's possible." Hyejin turned back to the hologram. "The Architects went extinct 8,000 years ago. We don't know why. Maybe being perfectly logical wasn't enough to survive. Maybe they needed a little human craziness." The next morning, the human pilots gathered at the launch bay. 12 small ships sat waiting. They were old ships by coalition standards. Their engines were basic, their weapons were simple, but they were fast and maneuverable, and they were flown by humans. Dongwu walked around his ship, checking every panel. His ship was called the Dauntless. He had named it after an old Earth warship. Other pilots did the same, preparing their vessels. Yunji Huang sat in her cockpit, running system checks. Her ship was painted with bright colors, patterns from Korean folk art. She said it made her ship lucky. The other species thought it was superstition. Yunji did not care what they thought. Taiho stood with Velix on the observation deck above the launch bay. The Admiral watched the humans prepare. "Your people are brave," Velix said. "Foolish, perhaps, but brave." "Bravery and foolishness look very similar," Taiho replied. "The difference is usually whether you succeed or fail." "And if you fail?" "Then we were foolish, but at least we tried." Jiwoo's voice came over the communication system. "All ships ready, systems green, pilots ready." Taiho picked up his own headset. "This is Commander Kim. All pilots, listen up. In a few minutes, we're going to fly into a kill zone. We're going to do something that every expert says is impossible. We're going to trust our instincts over our instruments. We're going to be faster than computers and smarter than machines." He paused. "We're going to be human. That's our advantage. We're unpredictable. We're adaptable. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars and 1,000 other things that should have killed us. This array is just one more thing trying to kill us, and we're going to survive this too." "Hell yes," Dongwu said over the comm. Let's show these aliens how humans fight, Sujin added. One by one, the other pilots added their voices. Agreement, determination, even excitement. Valix listened to this and shook his head. They sound like they are going to a celebration, not a battle. For humans, sometimes those are the same thing, Tejo said. The launch bay doors opened. Beyond them was space, cold and dark. And somewhere in that darkness was the Sentinel array, waiting. All ships, Tejo said. Launch when ready. Engines fired. One by one, the 12 human ships lifted off the deck. They moved through the open doors and out into space. Their formation was loose, not the tight military pattern the Coalition used. They looked almost casual. Thormund watched from another observation deck. They fly like they are not afraid. Maybe they are not, Velix said through the comm system. Or maybe they are afraid but do it anyway. With humans, it is hard to tell the difference. The human ships accelerated toward the void sector, toward the impossible mission, toward the Sentinel array. In the lead ship, Tejo checked his instruments one last time. Then he turned them off. He would fly by feel, not by numbers. That was the plan. Trust human instinct, trust human reflexes, trust human craziness. All ships, he said. We're going in. Stay loose, stay alert, and remember, we're humans. We don't know how to give up. The ships increased speed, diving into the darkness. Behind them, the Coalition fleet watched and waited. Some hoped the humans would succeed. Others prepared to witness 12 more deaths. None of them knew what was about to happen, because when humans said, "Leave it to us," anything was possible. The void sector looked empty at first, just darkness and distant stars. But as the human ships got closer, the Sentinel array appeared. It hung in space like a dark moon, covered with weapons that gleamed in the starlight. There it is, Dongwu said softly. Ugliest thing I've ever seen. I don't know, Yunji replied. I've seen your face in the morning. A few pilots chuckled. The nervous energy needed somewhere to go. Humor helped. Cut the chatter, Tejo said, but his voice was not harsh. He understood. They were all scared. They just refused to show it. Sensors are picking up activity. The array knows we're here. On the Coalition observation ship, dozens of aliens watched the displays. The human ships showed up as small blue dots. The Sentinel array was a massive red shape. Between them was empty space that would soon be filled with weapons fire. Valix stood rigid, all 4 of his arms tense. Thormund's crystalline body flickered with purple light, a color that meant worry in his species. They are too close, Thormund said. The array will fire soon. I know, Valix replied. The array moved. Weapon platforms turned, tracking the approaching human ships. Energy began to build in the barrels of hundreds of cannons. Energy spike detected, Jiwoo announced. She was in the command ship with Tai Ho. Her displays showed power levels rising across the array. It's charging weapons. 10 seconds to firing range. All ships spread out, Tejo ordered. Pattern Delta. Remember, don't think. Just react. The 12 ships scattered. They did not follow any mathematical pattern. Each pilot chose their own path, guided by instinct. To the watching aliens, it looked like chaos. It looked like the humans had no plan at all. Maybe they did not. Maybe that was the plan. The array fired. Beams of pure energy lanced through space. They moved at the speed of light. There was no dodging light. But the beams fired at where the ships would be in 0.3 seconds, and the human pilots were not where the array calculated they should be. Dongwu's ship rolled to the left. The beam passed so close that his shields flared. Overloading for a moment, he laughed. Too slow, he shouted. Eunji dove straight down, perpendicular to the plane of battle. A beam cut through the space where she had been. She pulled up, her ship groaning with the force of the maneuver. "These things really don't like us," she said. More beams filled the space around them. The human ships twisted and turned, each pilot reacting to threats they felt rather than saw. Their movements made no sense. There was no pattern, no logic. That was what saved them. The array fired again and again. Each time, the beams missed by meters, sometimes by centimeters, but they missed. On the observation ship, Thormund could not believe what he was seeing. "This is impossible. The probability of random movements avoiding targeted fire is nearly zero." "They are not random," Velix said slowly. "Look closer. Each pilot anticipates the next shot. They feel where the danger will be." "That is not logical." "No," Velix agreed. "It is human." Inside his ship, Tejo felt sweat on his forehead. His hands gripped the controls. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to flee, to get away from the death that filled the space around him. But he pushed forward. "First run complete," Jiwoo said. Her voice was steady, but Tejo could hear the strain in it. "We made it through the outer weapons grid. Phase 2, moving to medium range." "Copy that," Dongwoo replied. "All ships, tighten up. We need to draw more fire." The ships moved closer together, still weaving and dodging. The array responded by concentrating its fire. More weapons turned toward the humans. More beams filled the void. Sujin found herself flying through a crossfire pattern. Beams came from 3 different angles. She twisted her ship, rolling sideways, then diving, then climbing. Her movements were smooth, almost like a dance. She did not think about what she was doing. She just did it. A beam grazed her port engine. Warning lights flashed in her cockpit. "I'm hit," she reported. "Engine 2 at 60%. I'm still flying." "Can you continue?" Tejo asked. "Are you kidding? I'm just getting warmed up." Jinwoo, in his communications ship, was busy recording everything. His job was not to fight, but to watch and document. He tracked every shot the array fired, every movement the human ships made. This data might save lives later, if there was a later. "Pattern analysis shows the array is adapting," Jinwoo said. "It's starting to predict our movements. Success rate going from 0 to 15%. 15%? Yunji said. "That's still terrible odds for the array." "But improving," Tejo noted. "Jiwoo, how long until we reach the core?" "At this rate, 6 hours. Maybe 7. The array will figure us out before then." "I know. 6 hours. 6 hours of dodging death. 6 hours of flying by instinct. 6 hours of doing the impossible." Could they last that long? 2 hours passed. The human ships continued their deadly dance. The pilots were getting tired. Reactions slowed by microseconds. Mistakes started happening. Yunji took a hit to her shields. They collapsed, leaving her ship vulnerable. She pulled back from the main formation, working to restart the shield generator. Dongwoo flew too close to a weapon platform. The beam caught his rear thruster. His ship spun out of control. He fought with the controls, using maneuvering jets to stabilize. "Status," Tejo demanded. "I'm okay," Dongwoo replied. "Ship is damaged but flying. I can continue." More hours passed. 3 hours. 4 hours. The pilots rotated positions, giving each other brief moments of lower intensity. But there was no real rest. The array never stopped firing. In the observation ship, aliens from dozens of species watched in silence. What the humans were doing should not be possible, yet they continued, hour after hour, dodging, weaving, surviving. "How are they still alive?" Thormund asked. It was not a criticism, it was genuine wonder. "Because they are too stubborn to die," Velix replied. Then everything changed. The array stopped firing at random. Its weapon platforms rotated into new positions. The pattern of its attacks shifted. "What's happening?" Jiwoo asked. Jinwoo checked his data. His face went pale. The array has finished analyzing us. It's not predicting where we'll be anymore. It's predicting where we want to avoid. It's thinking like we think. Explain, Tejo said sharply. It learned. The array figured out that we dodge based on instinct. So now it's targeting our instinct. It's firing at the places we'll naturally move to, not the places we move from. The array fired. This time the beams were waiting where the pilots went. Dongwu rolled left and flew straight into a beam. His ship's shields held for a moment, then collapsed. The beam cut through his ship's wing. "I'm hit!" Dongwu shouted. "Lost main thruster! Ship is—" His ship began to tumble. He fought the controls, but half his maneuvering jets were gone. Another beam fired. This one targeted Su Jin. She dodged right, exactly where her instincts told her to go. The beam was there, waiting. Her ship exploded. "Su-jin!" Yunji screamed. "I'm okay!" Su-jin's voice crackled over the comm. "I ejected. Pod is intact, but my ship is gone." 2 ships damaged, 1 destroyed. The array had adapted. It had learned. The impossible was becoming possible again, but this time, the array was winning. "All ships fall back," Tejo ordered. "Emergency retreat. Get out of range." "Wait," Jiwoo said. "If we retreat, we lose. We'll never get this close again. If we stay, we all die." "Maybe not." Jiwoo's fingers flew over her console. "The array learned to predict our instincts. That means it's thinking like us now. It stopped being purely logical. So we stop being instinctive. We become unpredictable even to ourselves." Tejo understood. "Protocol broken arrow." "Protocol broken arrow," Jiwoo confirmed. Felix heard this over the communication link. He recognized the term. It was from Earth's old military. It meant desperate measures, last resort, organized chaos. "What is Protocol broken arrow?" Thormund asked. "I have no idea," Felix admitted. "But with humans, that might be the point." Tejo opened the comm to all ships. "Listen up. The array has learned to predict us. It knows how we think. It knows how we react. So we're going to stop thinking, stop reacting. We're going to do something that has no pattern at all." "How do we fly with no pattern?" Yunji asked. "You don't fly. You feel. Don't think about what the array will do. Don't think about survival. Don't think about anything. Close your eyes if you have to. Trust your hands. Trust your gut. Trust that millions of years of evolution made you good at not dying." Silence on the comm. Then Dongwu spoke. His ship was still tumbling, barely under control, but his voice was steady. "Are we really doing this?" "Yes," Tejo said. "This is the stupidest plan I've ever heard." "I know. I'm in." One by one, the other pilots agreed. Even Yunji, who had just watched her friend's ship explode, even Dongwu, whose ship was half destroyed. They all agreed, because they were human, and humans did not give up. "Jinwoo," Tejo said, "start the music." "The music?" Thormund said. "They are playing music? Now?" Jinwoo activated a file he had prepared. Music began broadcasting on all frequencies. Not modern music, not war music, classical earth music, orchestras, strings and horns and drums, the kind of music that moved without words, the kind of music that spoke to something deep and old in the human brain. The music filled the void of space. It filled the ships. It filled the minds of the pilots. And slowly, without planning it, without thinking about it, the human pilots began to move in rhythm. "They are synchronizing," Felix breathed. "Without communication, without planning, the music is connecting them." The ships flew again toward the array, but this time they moved differently. They flowed like water, like birds in flight, like a school of fish avoiding a predator. Each pilot made their own choices, but the music linked them. The rhythm guided them without controlling them. The array fired. The beams missed. It fired again. The beams missed. The humans were not avoiding the shots anymore. They were dancing around them. And the array, for all its intelligence, for all its adaptation, could not predict a dance. "It's working," Jiwoo whispered. "It's actually working." The ships moved deeper into the array's defenses, closer to the core, closer to victory, or closer to death. In the debris of her destroyed ship, Su-jin floated in her escape pod. She watched the battle through her pod's small window. She saw her fellow humans dancing with death in the darkness. She smiled. "That's right," she said to herself. "Show them how humans fight." The music swelled through space. Violins sang, drums thundered. And 11 human ships moved through the killing field like they belonged there. Dongwoo's damaged ship limped forward, trailing sparks. His main engine was dead. He was flying on backup power and prayer, but he flew in time with the music, and somehow the beams missed him. "I don't understand what's happening," he said. His voice was quiet, almost reverent. "I'm not thinking. I'm just moving. My hands know what to do." "That's millions of years of evolution talking," Jiwoo replied. She watched her screens, but the numbers meant nothing now. The math said they should all be dead. Reality disagreed. "Our ancestors dodged predators for so long that avoiding death became instinct. We just needed to unlock it." Yoonji's ship rolled inverted, flying upside down through a barrage of fire. She did not plan it. Her hands just moved. The music guided her. When she righted her ship again, she was laughing. "This is insane," she said. "I love it." The array fired more weapons. More platforms turned toward the humans. The intensity increased, but the humans adapted. They did not try to think faster or calculate better. They just felt the danger and moved away from it. Like animals. Like prey that evolved to survive. The observation ship was silent. Every species there had developed spaceflight through logic and mathematics. They had conquered the stars through careful planning and precise engineering. What they were watching made no sense to them. "They are not following any flight pattern I know," Thormund said. His crystalline body had shifted to white light, showing confusion. "Their movements have no mathematical basis." "They are following a pattern we cannot see," Velix replied. "Or perhaps a pattern that has no logic, only feeling. That should not work. And yet..." On one of the displays, a coalition analyst was running calculations. The numbers kept coming up wrong. The probability of 11 ships surviving this long in that environment was less than 1%, less than 0.1%. The analyst ran the calculations again and again. The answer did not change. "The humans are breaking probability itself," the analyst said softly. "No," Velix said. "They are teaching us that probability is not destiny." The human ships pushed deeper. 5 hours had passed since they entered the kill zone. 5 hours of constant danger, 5 hours of dancing with death. The pilots were exhausted. Sweat covered their faces. Their hands shook on the controls, but they did not stop. Jinwoo adjusted the music, switching to a new piece. This one was faster, more aggressive. The pilots responded without thinking, their movements becoming sharper. "We're getting close to the core," Jiwoo announced. 2 more layers of weapons. Then we're there." "What happens when we reach the core?" Yoonji asked. "I'll upload the virus. It should shut down the array." "Should?" "Nothing about this mission has gone according to plan. Why start now?" Taeho checked his ship's status. Shields at 30%. Hull integrity at 70%. Fuel at 40%. His ship was holding together through stubbornness and hope, much like the crew. "What if the virus doesn't work?" he asked Jiwoo privately, on a closed channel. "Then we die in the most spectacular way humans have died in a while," she replied. "But we die trying. That counts for something." "Does it?" "To us, yes. To humans, trying matters as much as succeeding." A beam caught Yoonji's ship. She had been flying inverted for 6 minutes because it felt right. The position saved her. The beam hit her underside instead of her cockpit. but the impact sent her spinning. "System's failing," she reported. Her voice was calm. "I can't control the spin. Going to have to eject." "Negative," Tejo ordered. "Stay with your ship. Let the spin carry you. Use it." "Use it how?" "I don't know. Figure it out." Yunji stopped fighting the controls. She let her ship spin. The universe rotated around her, a blur of stars and weapons and death. She closed her eyes. The music played in her ears. And somehow, in the spinning chaos, she found a rhythm. Her ship was tumbling, yes, but tumbling in a pattern. She fired her thrusters at precise moments, not to stop the spin, but to use it. She became a spinning top, bouncing through the weapon fire. Beams passed above her, below her, beside her, but none hit her. "That's the most ridiculous flying I've ever seen," Dongwu said. "And it's working." "I have no idea what I'm doing," Yunji admitted. "But I'm alive." The array seemed to pause. For just a moment, the firing slowed. The weapon platforms rotated, tracking the spinning ship that should have been an easy target but somehow was not. The array was confused. A machine that had operated perfectly for 10,000 years did not understand what it was seeing. The humans were not following any pattern. They were not being logical. They were not even being consistently illogical. They were just being human. And the array had no programming for that. "It's hesitating," Jinwu reported. "The array is hesitating. I've never seen it do that before." "It doesn't know what to do with us," Jiwu said. A smile crossed her tired face. "We're the first species crazy enough to fly like this. The first species that fights by not thinking." The moment of confusion passed. The array resumed firing. But something had changed. The shots were less accurate. The array was second-guessing itself, trying to predict the unpredictable. The human ships reached the second-to-last weapons layer. This one was different. The weapons here were bigger, more powerful. The beams could destroy a ship in one hit, shields or no shields. "Final approach," Tejo said. "This is it. One more push." "I don't have much left," Dongwu admitted. His ship was barely functioning. "But I'll give what I have." "Same," Yunji said. Her ship had stopped spinning, but her systems were critical. "One more dance." The other pilots added their voices. All of them were damaged. All of them were exhausted. But none of them quit. The music changed again. Jinwu had chosen something special for this final moment, a piece called Ode to Joy. It was old, centuries old, written by a human who could not hear it when he created it. It spoke of triumph, of brotherhood, of humanity's greatest hopes. The pilots heard it and felt something change inside them. This was not just about survival anymore. This was about showing the galaxy what humans could do. This was about proving that spirit mattered as much as logic, that courage could defeat mathematics. The ships accelerated, straight toward the massive weapons of the final layer. The beams fired, the humans dodged, they danced, they flowed, they moved like water finding cracks in stone, like wind flowing around mountains. One ship passed through, then another, then another. Dongwu's damaged ship took another hit. His last engine died. He was drifting now, momentum carrying him forward. "I'm done," he reported. "No power, no engines. I'm just a rock flying through space." "Then be a rock," Tejo said. "Drift. We'll pick you up on the way out." "If there is a way out." "There will be." Dongwu's dead ship drifted past the last weapons. The array fired at him. The beams hit his ship, tearing it apart. But Dongwu had already ejected. His escape pod tumbled through space, carried by momentum into the safe zone behind the weapons. "I'm through," he called. "And I did it without even trying. New record." 10 ships remained. No, 9. One more took a critical hit, the pilot ejecting at the last moment. 8 ships, 7. Then the survivors broke through the final layer. They were past the weapons. They had reached the core. The center of the Sentinel array was huge. a sphere of dark metal covered in panels and ports and technology that no living species understood. It hung in space like a mechanical planet. "We made it," Yunji breathed. "We actually made it." The 7 remaining ships formed up around Taiho's command ship. They were battered. They were damaged. But they had survived the impossible. On the observation ship, the coalition species erupted in noise, cheering, disbelief, wonder. They had witnessed something that should not have been possible. Thormund turned to Valix. "I was wrong. I was completely wrong." "About what?" "Everything. I thought logic was supreme. I thought mathematics could solve any problem. But these humans, they succeeded by ignoring logic, by embracing chaos." Felix's mandibles clicked softly. It was the equivalent of a smile in his species. "Perhaps we all have something to learn from them." Inside her ship, Jiwoo prepared the virus. Her hands moved quickly over the controls. The virus was simple, or rather it was complicated in a simple way. It contained no weapons, no aggressive code, just information, human information, art, music, literature, poetry, jokes, stories, all the things that made humans human. All the illogical, emotional, unpredictable things that humans created. "The virus is ready," she announced. "Uploading now." She pressed the button. The data streamed from her ship into the array's systems. Billions of bits of information. Pictures of Earth. Recordings of human laughter. Poems about love and loss. Songs of hope and defiance. The array received it all. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the Sentinel array encountered something it could not process. Logic could handle threats. Logic could handle attacks. Logic could handle numbers and patterns and mathematics. But logic could not handle a joke, could not process a love song, could not understand why humans painted pictures or wrote poems or danced for joy. The array's systems began to overload, not with damage, with confusion. With information that made no logical sense but clearly had meaning. The array's processors cycled faster and faster, trying to understand, trying to categorize, trying to make sense of humanity. It could not. The weapons stopped firing, the platforms went still, the great machine that had killed hundreds simply stopped. "It worked," Jiwoo whispered. "It actually worked." The array was not destroyed. It was still there, still functional. But it was no longer hostile. It had rebooted into a safe mode, trying to process the illogical information it had received, trying to understand humans. "All ships," Taiho said. His voice was rough with exhaustion and relief. "Mission accomplished. Let's go home." The 7 battered ships turned. They began the long flight back through the void sector. Behind them, the Sentinel array hung in space, silent and confused. And in the darkness, in escape pods and drifting ship debris, 5 human pilots floated. They were alive. They had survived. They had done the impossible. In the observation ship, Ambassador Yuna stood with Felix and Thormund. They watched the human ships limp home. "How did they do it?" Thormund asked. "I watched every moment. I still do not understand." Yuna smiled. "That's because you were looking for logic. There was no logic, just humanity." "But what is humanity?" Valix asked. "What makes humans so different?" Yuna thought for a moment. "We're the species that climbed down from trees we had no business climbing. We walked out of Africa when we should have stayed. We went to the moon with computers less powerful than a calculator. We survive because we don't let impossible mean impossible. We survive because we're too stubborn to quit." She looked at the retreating human ships. "We survive because when someone says it can't be done, we say, 'Watch me.'" 3 days later, the coalition station was different. The corridors were full of activity. Ships came and went, bringing supplies to the colonists who had been stranded in the void sector. The trade routes were open again. People who thought they would die were safe, and everyone wanted to talk to the humans. Tejo sat in the medical bay. His body ached. He had flown for hours in high-stress maneuvers. His muscles felt like they were made of stone. But he was alive. They were all alive. A coalition doctor examined him. The doctor was from a species that looked like a blue octopus. She waved 3 tentacles over him, scanning. "Your stress hormones are extremely high," she said. "Your body experienced trauma equivalent to running for 6 hours straight. You need rest." "I'll rest when the debriefing is done," Tejo replied. "That is very human of you," the doctor said. There was something in her voice that might have been respect. "To push past your limits and then push further. The medical data from your mission is fascinating. Your species should not be able to do what you did." "We get that a lot." In another medical bay, Dongwu was being treated for broken ribs. His ship had been destroyed, but he had ejected in time. The impact of the ejection had cracked 2 ribs. He sat on the medical table, wincing as the doctor applied a healing field. "You flew a dead ship into a weapons array," the doctor said. "That was foolish." "Probably," Dongwu agreed. "But it worked. You are lucky to be alive. Luck is what humans call skill we don't understand yet." The doctor made a sound that might have been laughter. "I am beginning to understand why Admiral Velix speaks of humans with such complicated emotions." Yunji was in the pilot's lounge, surrounded by coalition pilots. They all wanted to know the same thing. How? How did she fly inverted for 6 minutes? How did she turn a fatal spin into a survival technique? How did she avoid beams that should have killed her? "I don't know," she admitted. She was tired of saying it, but it was true. "I just did what felt right." "But how do you train for that?" one pilot asked. He was from a species with 6 eyes and 4 arms. "How do you learn to trust feeling over instruments?" "You don't train for it. You just do it. Humans have been trusting their feelings for millions of years. It's built into us. But feelings are imprecise. They lead to errors." "Sometimes," Yunji agreed. "But sometimes precision is the error. Sometimes you need to be messy and chaotic and wrong in the right way." The pilots looked at each other. They did not understand, but they were trying. That was a start. In the main council chamber, Ambassador Yuna stood before the coalition leaders. The room was full. Every species had sent representatives. They all wanted to hear the official report. Admiral Velix stood beside her. He had insisted on being there. He wanted to hear it from the humans themselves. "The mission was successful," Yuna began. "The Sentinel Array is no longer hostile. The void sector is open. The colonists are safe. 0 human casualties." Murmurs filled the chamber. 0 casualties. 5 pilots had lost their ships, but all had survived. In a mission that should have killed everyone, no one had died. "How?" someone called out. "We all saw the data. The probability of success was nearly 0. "The probability was calculated based on logical behavior," Yuna replied. "We did not behave logically, we behaved like humans." "That is not an answer," Thormund said. But his voice was not harsh. He genuinely wanted to understand. "I have studied the flight data. The maneuvers your pilots performed should have been impossible. The G-forces alone should have killed them." "Human bodies are tougher than you think," Yuna said. "We evolved on a planet with high gravity. Our bodies can handle stress that would kill most species. But more than that, we evolved to survive, to adapt, to overcome." Jiwoo stepped forward. She had been waiting at the side of the chamber. She carried a data pad. "May I?" she asked Yuna. Yuna nodded. Jiwoo activated the pad. A hologram appeared, showing the Sentinel Array. "The array was built by a logical species," Jiwoo explained. "Everything about it was precise, perfect, efficient. It could predict any logical response, any mathematical pattern. But humans are not purely logical. We're emotional. We're creative. We're chaotic. She changed the hologram. It now showed human brain scans. When we fly, we use parts of our brain that most species don't have, parts that developed when we were hunters, when we were prey, parts that let us react in milliseconds without thinking. The array could predict our thoughts, but it couldn't predict our instincts. "So you succeeded by not thinking?" someone asked. "That seems dangerous." "It is dangerous," Jiwoo admitted. "But danger is something humans understand. We've lived with danger our entire existence. Every predator on Earth wanted to eat us. We survived anyway. This mission was just another predator." Thormund stepped forward. His crystalline body was glowing with blue light. "I must confess something," he said. His voice was quiet. "I believed humans were primitive. I believed your success in joining the coalition was luck. I was wrong." He turned to face the assembled species. "These humans showed us that logic is not the only path to success, that sometimes the illogical choice is the right choice. They have earned respect, not just for surviving, but for teaching us something we did not know." Velix clicked his mandibles in agreement. "The coalition has faced impossible problems before. We always responded with more logic, more calculation, more planning, and sometimes that was not enough. Now we have humans. When logic fails, we will have chaos." "Is that wise?" someone asked. "Probably not," Velix replied. "But wisdom is overrated when you're facing death. Sometimes you need a little human craziness." The meeting continued for hours. Details were discussed, reports were filed. But the conclusion was clear. Humanity had proven itself, not through superior technology, not through advanced science, but through spirit, through courage, through sheer stubborn refusal to accept defeat. That evening, the human pilots gathered in their section of the station. They sat together, drinking coffee and earth beer that tasted terrible but was theirs. They were tired, they were sore, but they were alive. "To Su-jin," Dongwu said, raising his glass. "First to die and live to tell about it." Su-jin laughed. She had been rescued from her escape pod hours after the battle. "My ship exploded in the most spectacular way. I'm counting it as a win." "To all the ships that didn't make it," Yunji added, "they got us where we needed to be." They drank. They told stories. They laughed about the moments when they thought they would die. Humans dealt with trauma by turning it into stories, by finding humor in horror. It was how they survived. Taeho sat a little apart from the others. He watched his team, his friends. They had done something incredible, something that would be talked about for years, maybe centuries, and they acted like it was just another mission. Maybe to them it was. Ambassador Yuna found him there. She sat beside him, holding her own cup of terrible beer. "The Coalition Council has made a decision," she said. "Oh? They want to create a new task force for handling impossible problems, problems that logic can't solve. They want humans to lead it." Taeho was quiet for a moment. "We're not miracle workers." "No, but you're willing to try when no one else will. That's worth something." "What do we call this task force?" Yuna smiled. The council suggested several names. Very official. Very proper. Thormund wanted to call it the Illogical Solutions Division. And what did they decide? "They asked me to choose. I suggested we let Dongwu name it. Do you know what he said? Knowing Dongwu? Something inappropriate. He said we should call it Hold My Coffee." Taeho laughed. Actually laughed. It felt good. Of course he did. The council didn't understand the reference. I explained it's a human saying. When someone says, "Hold my coffee," it means they're about to do something stupid and dangerous. The council loved it. They think it perfectly captures the human spirit. Hold my coffee. That's our task force name. Unless you have a better idea. Taeho thought about it. He thought about the mission, about flying through impossible danger, about succeeding when everyone said they would fail, about the look on the aliens' faces when they realized humans had won. "No," he said finally, "it's perfect." 2 months later, the task force was official. 12 new impossible situations had been identified across the galaxy. Problems that the coalition had given up on. Problems that seemed to have no solution. The humans were invited to try. In the briefing room, the task force gathered. There were more humans now, volunteers from Earth who had heard about the mission, who wanted to be part of something bigger, who wanted to show the galaxy what humans could do. Tejo stood at the front of the room. Behind him was a display showing their first mission, a space station caught in a decaying orbit around a black hole. Coalition science said it was impossible to save. The math was clear. The station would be destroyed. "They say it's impossible," Tejo began. "They say we can't succeed. They say the laws of physics prevent it." He paused. "What do we say?" "Hold my coffee," the pilots replied in unison. "That's right. Now let's go do the impossible." "Again?" The humans stood. They left the briefing room. They went to their ships, and the galaxy watched. Because when humans said, "Leave it to us," miracles happened. Not because humans were stronger, not because they were smarter, not because they had better technology, but because humans had something that no amount of logic could replicate: hope, stubbornness, spirit, the refusal to accept that impossible meant impossible. And sometimes, in a galaxy full of logical species and calculated risks and mathematical certainties, that was enough. Sometimes, it was everything. Far away on Earth, a young girl looked up at the stars. She had heard the story about the pilots who flew into death and survived, about the impossible mission that succeeded, about humans showing the galaxy what they could do. She made a decision. When she grew up, she would go to space. She would join the task force. She would do the impossible. Because that's what humans did. They heard the word impossible and said, "Watch me." They saw danger and flew toward it. They faced death and laughed. And when the galaxy needed a miracle, when all hope seemed lost, when logic failed and mathematics could not save them, they said 4 simple words: "Leave it to us." And then they made the impossible happen, because they were human. And that was enough.